What if Hajime Kashimo was currently the strongest in Jujutsu Kaisen? With the fight opposing him to the king of curses Sukuna, a lot of people started downplaying him. I just find it crazy that people now just assume that he doesn't stand a chance because Sukuna just regenerated his body. All I'm going to say is that people need to remember that we don't know how strong Kashimo is. All we know is that he is currently contending with Sukuna, and that in his era he was also the strongest. And since we don't know anything yet, it could be a reveal that Kashimo is just as strong as the other two. This video isn't a power scaling video by any means. I'm just going to talk about Kashimo's character, elements that we had in the story, as well as what I think his binding vow is. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, get this video to 200 likes or any video you would suggest in the comment, and subscribe to my channel, but only if you enjoy the content that I put out. With all this out the way, let's get into it. So first, I just want to address something here. I understand that there's a possibility for Kashimo to lose without even putting up a fight. I just find it very stupid how some people can be so sure of themselves saying that it doesn't stand a chance. It's like comparing a certain number to another one that you do not know. If you do not know the number, how are you supposed to assume which one is bigger or if they are close? This just doesn't make sense to me. In my opinion, Kashimo could be one of the strongest characters that we've seen in the series. But by that, I don't simply mean that he's stronger than the rest but still not on Gojo's or Sukuna's height. I believe he'll be able to prove something to us. My first reason here is his binding vow. Ever since Kashimo told us about his technique, we still do not know what exactly his binding vow is. And now all we know is that when he uses this technique, he is going to die right after. And I think the reason for this is because he sacrificed his reverse curse technique. If we compare him to everybody else in the series, every single one of the top tiers possesses reverse curse technique. We can start with Gojo and Sukuna, Kenjaku and Yuki, Yuta and Hakari, Uraume, and a lot more characters. Kashimo being stronger or relative to Kenjaku, I find it surprising for him to not have reverse curse technique at all. So here's my theory. What if Kashimo already had reverse curse technique, and the reason why he could always use his technique at will is because he was able to heal himself faster than his body will break. This would be similar to the way Gojo treats his limitless. By having a constant reverse curse technique on, Gojo is able to prevent his brain from frying because of his technique. Kashimo could have been the strongest in his time period because he was able to do something like that. Because I find it hard to believe that he would just be the strongest in his era without even using the curse technique. Even without the technique, he has already shown to be one of the best. So I'm not saying that it's impossible for him to be one of the strongest in the Edo period even without the technique. But I feel like for him to be at such a level, he had to have used the technique at least once. And this theory would also explain why we never see Kashimo use reverse curse technique. The first reason could be simply that he never took enough damage for him to find it necessary. But the second reason could simply be that he cannot use it. And this would mean that Kashimo's binding vow actually prevents him from using reverse curse technique, but that would increase his strength by far, meaning that whenever he uses his curse technique, he won't be able to heal his body and prevent himself from dying. But in exchange, even though he was already the strongest in his own era, it would become even stronger now. And I believe such a bonus could get him to the level of the likes of Sukuna. And even though I'm not saying that it's completely impossible, I'm not saying that he is above Gojo and Sukuna. My point here is that Gojo is gone, and I think Sukuna is still weakened even though his body is regenerated. What if in this current time Kashimo was actually stronger than him, or at least relative to him? This would allow him to deal a good amount of damage before dying from his own technique, which would make Sukuna beatable for the rest of the cast, at least if they jump him. And the reason why I believe that Kashimo has to be strong enough to at least weaken him is because there is nobody else in the cast that can do it. The reason why I have so much trust in Kashimo is because we already know everything about everybody else. Even though we don't know how strong they all are at full power, we know that Yuta, who's probably the next one on the list, is not close to Sukuna, and everybody else would be even below that. People say that Yuji is currently a counter to Sukuna, but I still don't think he's strong enough. And if Kashimo doesn't do it, the other person that could weaken Sukuna is Kenjaku, but I don't see that happening either. If Kenjaku needs to backstab Sukuna, I think it would need him to be weakened. If Kenjaku was as scared as Gojo as he was before, he for sure doesn't stand a chance against current Sukuna. So with Kenjaku and Gojo out of the picture, and everybody else in the cast not being strong enough to do anything to Sukuna, there's only one character left that can actually make him weak enough to either get backstabbed by Kenjaku, or weak enough to get jumped by the rest of the cast. And this one person is Kashimo, for the simple fact that we do not know what he's capable of doing. Him being as strong as Sukuna could simply be a reveal in one of the upcoming chapters. Saying that anybody else could be as strong as Sukuna would simply be wrong because we've seen seen what they're capable of doing. And I think it's interesting because Yuki could beat Kenjaku in a one-on-one. If Tengen's barrier wasn't involved and other outside interference, I'm not saying that Yuki will be stronger than Kenjaku, but I'd say that they show relativity. There's a possibility for Yuki to beat Kenjaku in a one-on-one. And even though Kenjaku said that he didn't see much in Yuta, I think Yuta still has the ability to show something to Kenjaku, even if they aren't the same strength. So as we all know, Sukuna and Gojo are leagues above everybody else in the series, and nobody else could do anything to them. If it's not the singular character that could be the same level as them, or that is at least in the middle, the person that actually stands a chance and actually has the ability to damage Sukuna. And from the informations that we have, only Kashimo has the ability to do so. Now again, I could be proven wrong in the future. One thing about Kashimo is that it was probably as strong as Yuta or Hikari, while being like about 10, 5 or even 3%. Because as Gojo said in the beginning, a curse technique represents 80% of your strength. So this alone will mean that Kashimo was at 20%. Now from the way his technique works, I would assume that it does a little more than 80%. So let's give it an 85 or even a 90%. On top of that, you add a binding vow that sacrifices your life when you use the technique, which could take the technique even further, and now the technique will represent about 95 or even 98%, which will mean that Kashimo wasn't even at 5% and he was doing all this to Hikari. Now I'm not a power scaler, so I'm not going to tell you how many times Gojo or Sukuna is stronger than the rest of the cast, but let's just assume that they are both about 20 times stronger than the rest of the cast. Kashimo will be about the same level as them. Now again, all the numbers that I'm using could be wrong, but this is just to say that he could be stronger than everybody thinks. All we have to remember is that we don't know anything about him. All we know is that he is strong, but we don't know how strong he is. We don't know the extent of his power, or we don't even know if he's shown everything that his technique could do yet. But people just need to stop being so sure of themselves that just because Sukuna transforms, that means Kashimo is losing immediately. Because if he loses like that, I don't even think that would make sense for the story. And if my theory is true about Kashimo's binding vow, and that Sukuna is still unable to use his domain or reverse curse technique, I think those two would be a great matchup, having two insanely strong characters that do not have the ability to heal. And all they will have to do is fight, simply have a regular fight, straight hands and action. Because any fights opposing strong characters in the series recently has been about who can use reverse curse technique better. For example, Gojo vs Sukuna fight was more based about reverse curse technique than anything else. The Yuki vs Kenjaku fight had a lot of reverse curse technique involved. Both Yuta and Hikari are using reverse curse technique a lot in their fights as well. That would be a battle of the strongest that revolves around something else than whoever can heal for the longest, which is why I believe that they would have a good and even fight. I would love for Kashimo to have the upper hands at some point, but even if he doesn't, as long as the fight is even and that Kashimo dies from his own technique and not because Sukuna was too strong, I think that would be all I need for Kashimo's character. Let me know what you think about the binding vow theory, about the reverse curse technique, and let me know as well if you think that Kashimo is going to put up a fight. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. Get this video to 200 likes or any video you would suggest, and subscribe to my channel, but only if you enjoy my content. I'm trying to reach 2,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I'm counting on y'all for that. I appreciate y'all for making it to this point. You can give me any sort of criticism or video suggestions, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.